Cooking on Shabbat. Be'ezrat Hashem, from today we are going to talk and learn about melachot on Shabbat, things that we are permitted and not permitted. I think some of you will be surprised for things that we are supposed or not supposed to do. Before we start the halachot, I would like to share with you some introduction, because not everyone is familiar with the term cooking. People think cooking is putting a pot on the stove and cooking. What about baking? Baking considered cooking? What about if I'm not using fire, some electric element? Is that going to be a problem? What about cooking on from the heat of the sun? Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's very, very hot, and people can put on the roof, I don't know, a few eggs, come back after an hour, it's a hard egg. Yeah. Maybe even shorter than that. Shalom Aleichem, come on in. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nihya b'dvaro. We have today, see more people on the Zoom. You can sit here or there, or the very back, whatever you feel comfortable. If you need to write something, you need to sit at the chair, table. Okay, you need to sit and write on something, no? Sure? Okay, so the melacha of cooking, some people mistakenly think that this is only about cooking on a stove with a pot. But today, Be'ezrat Hashem, we will start maybe to understand the meaning of it, what is permitted and what is not permitted. Shalom Aleichem. Okay, so the melacha of mevashel. So let me ask you this. Mevashel, I'm going to use the word mevashel or bishul. Bishul means cooking. If I tell you, do you mind? No, never mind, because you're sitting. Let's do this. Do you mind go to the back, okay. Sammy? And you can sit here, and you can maybe sit here by the chair. Yeah. Just push the chair over there so you have some room, so you guys can sit by a table. It'll be easier for you to take notes. Thank you. All right. The melacha of mevashel. When I tell you, it's forbidden to cook on Shabbat. Guys, please, Yitzchak and Esther, please put yourself on mute. When I tell you, oh, I see here Chaim from Mexico. Shalom Aleichem, all the way from Mexico. L'chaim. If I tell you, you should not cook on Yom Shabbat. What do you think? Define cooking on Shabbat. What do you think cooking on Shabbat means? I would like to hear from you. What is it? Kindling a fire. Kindling a fire. Just kindling a fire by itself, it's considered cooking. You have to have it to cook. What if the fire is already there from before Shabbat? So you think probably putting raw food consider cooking. Sometimes putting cooked food will be considered cooking.
High temperature?
High temperature? It depends what temperature also. Storing it, very good. Sometimes ready food is no problem. You can put it on the heat and it's not considered. Sorry, say it again.
Turning on the flames of the stove, cooking, hot pan.
Hot pan. Okay, some is permitted. So we'll try to understand what's permitted and what's not. First, the introduction is very important. The av melacha on Shabbat. You know how many av means father, av mean melachot. Melacha means work. How many total are forbidden on Shabbat? How many? 39. Where did this 39 number come from? All the melachot, all the kind of work, melacha, there's a difference between melacha and work, but for the sake of the conversation, melacha was 39 melachot exactly that they performed when they had the tabernacle, the Mishkan. And Hashem said in the Torah, now it's forbidden. Shabbat comes, you should rest from all the melachot that are related to the Mishkan, to the tabernacle. So we learn from that all these 39 melachot are forbidden on Shabbat. So there is Av, like Abba, the head, and there are some Toladot, like it's children. It's some melachot that derive from the one or connected to it. Shabbat is one of the mitzvot that it's really, really hard to keep if you don't know the halacha. If you didn't go over the halachot of Shabbat, the laws of Shabbat, at least once or twice in your life, all of them, I can tell you that Chafetz Chaim said that, and other great rabbis, you are definitely desecrating Shabbat. You are breaking Shabbat. Because we don't know. This is why it's very important to learn the halachot on Shabbat. Okay? The Av Melacha of Mevashel, cooking, is one of the most prominent melachot applicable in everyone's household. Rambam explained that this includes cooking food, heating water, and baking bread. Cooking and baking are synonyms in halachic terms. So when I say baking, cooking is the same. This melacha applies not only to cooking food items, but also to any material that changes when heat is applied to it. Therefore, boiling herbs to create dye is an act of melacha that the Torah prohibits on Shabbat. In order to use, for example, to paint something, to color something, you should take some sort of herbs, cooking it, and then using its liquid to write, to paint, like people do even today. Melting wax or metal is likewise forbidden by the Torah. So far, so good. Yeah. Cooking with solar heat from the sun. There is no prohibition, not from the Torah nor from our sages, to cook with solar power. No. We'll see what it means. And okay, the Torah prohibited cooking by the heat of a fire or heat of something that itself was heated by a fire. For example, if one boiled water on the fire, the Torah forbids us from cooking a food in the heat of that water, even after it removed from the fire. So I have a pot, I have fire under it, I take this pot, I put it away, it's still boiling, it's still hot. It might be a problem to use it later. We'll see in which way we can or we cannot. Because imagine to yourself, you're saying, oh, I'm not taking boiled water and using to do anything. Well, you do it almost all the time every Shabbat. In the form of a cup, it's boiled hot, very hot water, and you put it now away. You're going to put there, I don't know, coffee, instant coffee, tea, it's herbs. Is that permitted on Shabbat? Yes, no, we see people do that all the time. So in which way it's permitted, which way it's not permitted, it's very hot, what's the degree, so forth and so on. Although it is permitted to cook using solar heat, our sages instituted a rule that it is forbidden to cook using the heat of something that was heated by the sun. For example, if one brought water to a boil using solar heat, it is forbidden to cook something else using the heat of that water. Our sages feared that if was permitted, people might think that it is permitted to cook in water that was heated by a fire as well. And in reality, the Torah forbade that. But we'll see later what is permitted and what is not permitted to use the power of the solar, the sun. Because sun is permitted. Cooking something that was cooked once before. This is just an introduction. This is the title. This is the topics that we are going to deal with, Be'ezrat Hashem. Once a food has cooked completely, there is no prohibition against cooking it a second time. However, there is a distinction between liquid food and solid food. Give me an example of liquid food.
Water, tea, or soup.
Soup. JUN is a mix. It's a mix of liquid and solid, but mostly solid. Okay? If it is a solid food, give me an example of a solid food. It depends who's cooking it, right? You see sometimes too much of a... Okay, so what could be a solid? Bread, challah, schnitzel, potatoes, rice. This is solid. If this is already cooked before Shabbat, you can hit it up, no problem. Do it again, hit it again, there's no problem. It's already cooked. There is definitely no prohibition against cooking it again, since it's the second cooking does nothing to change the food. Listen to this. Chazon Ish ruled that it is if a substance revert entirely to what it was before it was cooked the first time, it is as if it was never cooked, and it is forbidden to cook it a second time. For example, if someone melted a metal, right, and then it cooled and solidified, it is forbidden to melt it again on Shabbat. Okay, so it's cooked food. This is a different.
Like gravy?
I'm not sure what's gravy. What is it?
Gravy is
Like gravy?
it's a mix of the fat of the meat with something to thicken it like flour and then the broth. So it's fat.
No, we're talking about metal, because the metal you can melt it like lead.
So like gravy is
You melt the lead.
soup. Once it's liquid and then it goes cold, it
Right.
coagulates.
But this is a different status. Why? Soup is a soup. It's cold or hot, it's still soup. But lead, you melted, is liquidish. You let it cool, it's solidified, it will go back to be lead, but solid lead. Copper, lead, whatever. Using lead, you know what lead is? Using it for fishing, and this is the great stuff. I don't know what else they're using it. Using it for, by the way, for Ayin Hara. You remember I mentioned that? To find Ayin Hara, we're using lead. I told you that I have a very interesting video about that I made myself. Okay, next. The Rishonim disputed the Halacha concerning cooking a liquid food after it was once cooked. Rabbeinu Hashem, Rabbeinu Yonah ruled that it is forbidden because once a liquid cools down, cooking it again is a new act of cooking. Rambam and Rashba, however, ruling that one may cook even a liquid food a second time on Shabbat. So some of the Yemenite that follow the Rambam, for them it's easier. Ashkenazim and Sephardi, it's a big issue, because the Shulchan Aruch ruled here against Rambam. He was strict. Okay? So Yemenite can take, for example, soup from the refrigerator and put it on the blech, on the plata. No problem. Yeah, because it was already cooked. Rambam Pasken, it's permitted. The Shulchan Aruch ruled like the first, more stringent opinion. Sorry?
In these examples, when it says cooked, are we speaking about reheating or cooking on your
Reheating.
flame? Okay.
Reheating will be more accurate, right? Anybody wants some drink and soda, please feel free. Beginning with Halacha 64, we'll discuss the rule of cooking food that was baked and roasted, yada yada. Okay, I'm going to finish this introduction. Another very important thing that we learned. Did you ever hear, of course you did, the terms Kli Rishon, Kli Sheni, Kli Shlishi? Everybody familiar with that, right? This is a pot, this is a tank of water. I have a faucet here. And I'm pouring to a cup of coffee. This is considered kli rishon. Cup is kli sheni. Another cup will be kli shlishi. Who cares? Rishon, sheni, shlishi. You're teaching me numbers. I know numbers. What's the big deal here? It's a very big deal. Because kli rishon is the one that it's on the fire or either hooked to the outlet, to electricity. Okay? You can't put stuff in it because it has the power to cook. Our sage is now debating if I pour from this kli rishon to a kli sheni, if a kli sheni has the power to cook. Everybody agree that the third one, kli shlishi, has no power. You can do with it whatever you want. Kli sheni, some says yes, some says no, because it's actually cooling down. It's not on the fire. It's not connected to the electricity. You get what I'm saying here?
Yeah.
If you could put in it, I don't know, some spices or nana, mint, for example, so forth and so on. So the best of the best, I'm just giving you a tip before we study the halacha. You have kli rishon, you pour it to kli sheni, and you pour it to your cup. According to all opinion, you're good. You can mix this in kli shlishi, every material you want. Doesn't have the power to cook. The question starts about kli sheni, the one that received from the rishon. Then there's some question raised because it may be still too hot. It has the power. If you leave it not long enough, it will cook. Yes, no. We'll see on that. You get the idea where we're going with that? Okay. Primary vessel and secondary vessel. The Mishnah on Shabbat 42a teaches that even after removing a pot from the fire, one may not pour spices into the pot on Shabbat. But one may pour spices into the food after it is transferred to a bowl. This means that the pot, having been on the fire, is a primary vessel. A kli rishon. Kli means vessel in Hebrew. Rishon means one. Okay? And can continue to cook its contents even after it is removed from the fire. Please, I beg you guys, if you don't understand a word or anything I'm saying, raise your hand. I will repeat it 100 times if needed, because this is very, very important. It's one of the foundation of Torah. Keep Shabbat properly. Therefore, one may not add spices to the pot. The bowl into which the food is transferred afterward is a secondary vessel, a kli sheni, and has no power to cook. One may therefore add spices to the bowl. Kli sheni, less problems. We'll see later on opinions that might say yes, might no. Now, no problem.
I have a question.
Right.
You can't add spices to kli rishon,
Mhm.
to kli sheni.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so that.
Yes. This Mishnah teaches two important principles. One is that a pot that was on the fire retains the power to cook as long as it is scalding hot. We'll see what's the temperature. Talk to me with Fahrenheit and Celsius. We'll see that. This is called kli rishon. The second principle is that the secondary vessel to which the food was transferred from the pot. So it does not have the power to cook even if its contents are still scalding hot. This is called kli sheni. Some people says, "Oh, I've never done that. I've never done it before." What are you talking about? Putting food inside water, boiling water. Who's doing that? Well, you do that because you're going to have babies, and you want to warm the bottle for the baby. Something they can put it directly to the kli rishon. How we can warm the food for the baby. All right? Or you want to warm an egg. You don't feel like eating a cold egg. So you're trying to be, what do you call it? Creative on Shabbat to heat up the egg. There's easy ways to do it. A permitted way. B'ezras Hashem, all that we will study. Okay, I think we're going to stop here and let's go to the halacha. Halacha number 1. A Jew who bakes bread on Shabbat, or one who cooks food or boils a dye, it's paint, okay, is guilty of performing the melacha of mevashel, one of the 39 categories of work forbidden by the Torah on Shabbat. Comprende? Good. Also, a Jew who roasts meat or any food on Shabbat, or one who fries food on Shabbat, is guilty of the same sin. Cooking, boiling, baking, frying, it's all under the category of cooking on Shabbat. A Jew who melts wax, soot, pitch, or some other similar substances by heating it, is guilty of performing the tolada. Tolada, remember the first melacha is called av. The second one is called tolada. Tolada is a branch of the melacha of mevashel. The same applies to one who melts a metal or heats it until it glows. The definition of an act of the melacha of mevashel is concerning food or beverage, to use heat to make the substance more edible or potable than before. And concerning other substances, to use heat to harden a soft material or to soften hard material. Yes?
Rabbi, you...
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I'm sorry, he unmuted itself. I'm sorry. Melting wax. We actually said that. Okay. If a Jew placed a pot of a food that has not been completely cooked onto a fire or onto an electric warming tray on Shabbat, he must immediately remove it from the fire before he becomes guilty of cooking on Shabbat. This is what I always say. It's best to cook everything before Shabbat. What's left is just to heat up. Some people have the custom of taking the cholent pot, putting all the ingredients, putting the water, the spices, the stirring it, mixing everything together, closing it, and right before Shabbat, turning it on. It was cooked before Shabbat? No. It will be cooked all Shabbat long. Is that permitted? What do you think? It will be cooked on Shabbat. That's best. But let's say someone did it, and I know people that are doing it all the time.
You open the leaf.
Think about the details technically. Putting all material before after Shabbat, only before Shabbat. Turning it on before after Shabbat candles, right? Before. So I did everything that it's permitted. It can be cooked on Shabbat. What's the problem start? The problem starts later. What's the problem? I'm just giving you an example, a taste of what we're going to learn. If you are going to open it next day, around 11, 12 o'clock, when everybody comes from synagogue to eat, it's probably going to be ready.
Shabbat in the morning.
Shabbat morning.
Shabbat in the morning. Okay.
The problem is that technically it's not happening all the time. People on Friday night, before they go to sleep, it's midnight, they feel the smell, say, wow, it's so good, let me check it out.
Mm-hmm.
So they open the lid. Oh, it's boiling, it's stirring, it's bubbling, small bubble, it's good. They want to put the lid back. You can't. Why? Because now you're adding an extra heat. Let's say I'm throwing number. It's on 230 degrees Fahrenheit. As soon as you remove it, it goes down to, I don't know, 190, 180.
The temperature comes
Temperature goes down. Now we're going to put the lid back,
It will be.
and now you're making it cook. You can definitely do that if it's cooked before Shabbat. Okay? But now it's something that half cooked, it's not cooked, it's 30%, 10%, we don't know. Might be a problem. Okay? So I have to make sure that we know all the halacha and how to do that. I'm going to skip just going to the main halachot. Okay. There are poskim, rabbis that set up the rules, poskim, who ruled that if someone cooked water or milk on Shabbat, even if he made it scalding hot, he is not guilty of an act of the melacha of mevashel, cooking, since these beverages were equally potable before they were cooked. Potable meaning they were in the pot, they were cooked. They ruled that this is forbidden only by our sages. So the poskim ruled that the Torah prohibits cooking these liquids, and this is the accepted opinion. It doesn't really matter if this is Torah prohibit that for us right now. It's by the rabbi, it's a rabbinical law. It's still either forbidden or permitted. Okay, but it just when the halacha says it's from the Torah or it's a rabbinical law, it's about the punishment, the gravity of the punishment. If it's in Torah, it's more severe. I'll give you a scenario. Someone, it happens this Shabbat, Friday night, if you remember. Friday night, remember after you want to leave the shul, what happens here? Raining. People went out singing, I'm singing in the rain, jumping, happy, woo! They came home, jacket is wet, pants wet, kippah, hat, whatever. Said, I have a solution. I'm going to put my jacket close to the oven. It will dry quickly. Permitted or not permitted? It is forbidden to place wet clothes near an oven on Shabbat so that it will dry in the oven's heat. Even if it is hung on the back of the chair so that it does appear that it has been hung to dry. Hanging it so near to an oven that the water absorbed in the cloth becomes scalding hot. Yad soledet bo. I'm talking about something that you put very close. Yad soledet bo, scalding hot, means, I don't know to tell in Fahrenheit, but it's around 45.
And if you touch it,
Right, so what's the numbers? In Celsius, around 45 degrees. And Fahrenheit, I'm not sure. I thought I have it here, but if you want to Google it to see what's 45 Celsius, what is it, 110? I'm not sure. We'll see in a second. So you need to be careful with that. Cooking that water. Furthermore, it is an act of
13.
113?
Close. She was so
Wow, hell.
close.
So it's around 110, 113 Fahrenheit. If the water is still in that heat, it's okay. Up to that heat, you can warm, you can do whatever in it. You can put the baby's bottle in it, no problem. Okay? Over that, it's already considered a mevashel, cooking. It's too hot. Be careful with this heat.
Mevushal is the same, the word of the mevushal.
Mevashel, mevushal, it's the same, come from the same root. So cooking that water. Furthermore, it is an act of melacha, of melaben, laundering. It is likewise forbidden to hang the wet cloth over a hot radiator or in front of it. It is, if it is close enough to become scalding hot. If you put this jacket close enough to the heat element or heat source, and the heat will be over 110, 100 or 45 Celsius, that's forbidden. You know, I don't think you have a temperature device to check, but I think you can sense that it's either too hot or just not that much. Okay, if the cloth is hung on the back of a chair and somewhat distant from the oven, so that the water in the cloth cannot become scalding hot, it is permitted. One may not hang it in a manner that makes it obvious that one wishes to dry, no matter where it is. Where it is. Okay, make sense? Shabbat, we need to be careful with these melachot. People think cooking is just cooking food. You can be cooking the water in the jacket. It's considered cooking. Cooking is not always related to cooking food. All right?
You said there's no problem with the sun, right? But what about the people who have accident? The cloth it was wet. He can put it outside and there's a sunny day.
We'll see that when you get there. Most of the actions we do with the sun is permitted, but I don't want to get there because some are not.
Yeah.
It's a little bit tricky. Okay. Okay. Next.
Rabbi, I have a quick question going back to the pot about uncovering and covering. I have the book here and it says it's forbidden to wrap a pot in a blanket. Is that an actual blanket? Like what is it referring to?
It is, and there is a way that it will be permitted. For example, you have a JUN pot and you feel that it's not hot enough. So what people do, they take a blanket, a real blanket that they don't really use all the time, instead of throwing it away, so they're using it for these purposes. They take the blanket, they fold it, they put it on the top of this JUN pot, they cover it from all angles, and that creates more heat. All right? So if you put it before Shabbat, we'll see it before Shabbat. You put it before Shabbat, and it's covered from all angles, and one spot is not covered, you can take it off, you can put it back, it's no problem. It's become like another lid. But on Shabbat, it's under the category of matmin, tamun, tomen. It's another category. We will learn B'ezras Hashem when we get to it. We did it all the time in the synagogue when we have a lot of pot and we have enough room. We have to put 3 or 4 pots together and we have to cover it with a blanket. The blanket saved us in many ways. Otherwise, the food will be no good. But we learn in which way to do it in a permitted way. Okay? Okay, there's a lot of details. I'm just giving you the main ideas. Okay, so the tools that you can use and B'ezras Hashem practice at home. The Torah forbids cooking food over a fire on Shabbat, or even to cook using the heat of something that has been heated with a fire. Examples of these are to place an egg or some other food next to a pot of food, that has been heated with a fire, or in a cloth that has become sourcing hot from a fire. Okay? The act of cooking in this manner is equal to cooking with the heat of the fire itself. Therefore, if one cooks food on Shabbat in a hot oven after having removed all the coals and ashes from it, or if one cooks something in a pot of boiling hot water after it has been removed from the fire, he is guilty of performing the melacha of mevashel. Okay, so when bottom line the oven, the pot is still hot, it's very hot. It doesn't matter if the coal is in it, it's on the fire, or away from the fire. It's still hot. It still has the power to cook. So you have to be careful with that. What about cooking with a microwave? It's a different animal. It's no fire. It's no. It's radio waves.
But it's electric.
So let's start by saying that cooking with an electric appliance is the same as cooking with fire. It is forbidden even if it was turned on before Shabbat began. Now, it is forbidden to cook using a microwave oven, even if it is programmed with a timer to turn it on automatically on Shabbat. There is no room for leniency concerning this, even for the sake of someone moderately ill. If someone must, according to the doctor, order to cook food on Shabbat for the sake of someone desperately ill, it's preferred to use now microwave. It is preferable that he cook in a microwave oven, because at the end of the day, it's not a fire. So if you already have to, and the doctor says you must eat so-and-so cooked, do it with a microwave. Okay, any questions? Okay.
Will you be going back to soup?
Go ahead.
But soup, will you be revisiting the subject again?
Mm-hmm. Of course, I just mentioned a few titles, and this is something, we're not going to do everything today. This is our topic, Be'ezrat for the next few classes. And we'll make sure that Be'ezrat everybody know how to cook in a permitted manner, so nobody will break Shabbat, Be'ezrat Hashem, and Shabbat will be on us as a blessing. Okay? Cooking by the heat of the sun, or things heated by the sun. It is permissible to cook on Shabbat using the direct heat of the sun. For example, the Ashkenazim are strict about that. For example, one may place a container of water or an egg in the sunlight so that it will heat up and become cooked. On Shabbat. What's up with that? Our sages institute a rule forbidding us to cook on Shabbat with the heat of an object that has been heated by the sun. For example, if someone left water in the sunlight until it becomes scalding hot, you think that this is not real. Maybe Texan can, but there's places in Eretz Israel, the car, if you touch it, you get burned. I'm telling you. So people sometimes what they do, they put a pot and they can cook egg on it. And the heat of the sun is that hot. So just so you know. It's forbidden to immerse a raw egg in that water so that the egg will cook in it. Our sages fear that if this will be permitted, people will make the error of thinking that it is permissible to place raw egg into scalding hot water that has been heated by fire, whereas in truth that is forbidden by the Torah. For this reason, it is forbidden to cook an egg on Shabbat in scalding hot that was heated by solar power and comes through the faucet. Meaning, if you put the egg by itself out there and it cooked by the sun, it's good. But not inside a water that was cooked by the sun, because it looks like cooking and people mistakenly think this is permitted also by using fire. That's it. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, okay. Yeah, I don't know if they have it here. You don't have it here in America very much. What's it called? The dud shemesh. What do you call it? Right. Here we have water heater, but it's all on gas, electrical, or gas or electric. In Israel, it's very common to have a solar water tank. It means that it uses no electricity nor gas. Okay? So some people like to take a shower with it or to wash dishes with it on Shabbat. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to read the very beginning and we move to the next one. Those who have solar water heating systems in their houses, in Israel it's everywhere, I think, right? Your parents has it? Everybody has it, right? Houses are permitted to turn on the hot water faucet on Shabbat and use the hot water for washing dishes. Questions?
I'm sorry, did you say it was prohibited or
Permitted. It's very special. What time is Mincha? 25? Okay.
8:10.
I will stop like maybe 10 minutes before. Tell me, so let's talk for a second about the system we have here. What do we have here? Either water tank on fire or on electric. What's the problem to use this hot water to wash dishes?
So once you start using it, it'll replenish and it'll heat again?
That's one problem. What else?
What was the question?
Using the system we have here in America,
Gas.
hot water to wash the dishes. Why not? The way it works, it's very simple. We have a pipe that comes from the bottom and goes in.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when the hot water, we start to empty the hot water? Cold water coming in. So what's going on with the cold water that just come in? They're going to be cooked with the hot water that's already in the tank. Cooking on Shabbat. Alright? Beside that, as soon as you open the hot water, the fire is opened, right? And the system tries to keep the temperature even. So it's maybe indirect action. You're not really turning the fire on, but basically cold water coming in and the system doing its job, heating up the tank. All right? So I know a guy that tried to trick the system. What he did before Shabbat, he would turn off the gas. It says I have 50 gallons here. It's enough for me, for Shabbat, dishes, everything I want to use. It's still going to be a problem because the mix of the cold water that just came in with the hot water that exists in the tank. So you see people taking showers on Shabbat in cold water. Here in America, in Dallas, it's not really hot, it's warm. Right? It's no big deal. So when we go home, happens to me many times, walking from shul, 1 mile home, you sweat like crazy. So before you start Kiddush, take a quick shower, clean up yourself, come back. It's good. You see? It's just the cold water, and it's not really cold. Okay?
But
Okay.
if you live in a building...
Sorry, say it again? Sorry?
If you live in the building and
Shared water heaters?
they share the water heater,
That's another problem. I asked...
some people are more lenient.
I know.
Right?
I didn't know the system, how it works, so I asked Rabbi Fried the other day. Obviously, Yom Tov is no problem. Problem on Shabbat. It's by a non-Jew, and the system is far away, and there's always running hot water, and it's not only you opening, you're sharing with another non-Jew, it's a complex, everybody's opening it. Whether you do it or don't do it, it's going to happen anyways again. So he's asking that it's absolutely forbidden, even in that manner.
Yeah, because sometimes people will open it in the morning and there's no hot water.
Even if your share is 1% or 2%, it's still forbidden. Let me conclude with Halacha for today, and I think we're done for today. Bishul bikli rishon ve'irui mikli rishon. Cooking in primary utensil, kli rishon, and pouring water from it onto food. So many details I'm telling you. I'm just going to go through the main one. The term kli rishon refers to the utensils in which food is cooked by the heat of the fire on an electric warming tray, such as a pot or a pan. Even after a pot is removed from the fire, it still has the ability to cook halachically, as long as it is scalding hot, above 110 or 45 Celsius. Therefore, if someone removes a pot of the hot water from the fire on Shabbat, it is forbidden by the Torah to insert any raw or rare food, even beef, which needs more cooking than other food. People say, well, I'm putting a beef, woo, just want to warm it. It's going to cook it. To cook this, take 3-4 hours. Even with that, into the pot water, although the beef might not become cooked through doing this, the juices in the beef will become cooked, and therefore this is considered an act of cooking. It is likewise forbidden to add cold water to a kettle of hot water, and that was removed from the fire if, as a result, all the water will become scalding hot. It is a great mitzvah to teach this concept to the general public and save them from unwittingly desecrating Shabbat. So this is our first step toward learning the main halachot of Shabbat, so we can keep Shabbat properly and we'll be able to teach other people. Obviously, there's so many halachot. The responsibility of each and every one of us is to learn by itself. There's a lot of classes out there on YouTube. There's books we can read and learn on Shabbat. Every day, one halakha, 2 halachot. So we'll know how to keep Shabbat properly. On behalf of Ohev Israel Foundation, I want to thank you for participating in this Torah class. All those who are watching us live, Baruch Hashem, I see many of us watching live, and also on the Zoom. God bless you with all the berachot in the Torah. Next week won't be class. We are leaving Be'ezrat Hashem to Eretz Yisrael. We will renew our classes as soon as we come back. I don't know if you will miss us, but surely we'll miss you. Shavua Tov.